She turned away all who came for her, until a human earned the alien princess's trust, HFY Sci-Fi. The royal city of Aranth floated above the blue clouds of the planet Lysara, held in place by ancient gravity engines that hummed day and night. From a distance, the city looked peaceful, almost beautiful, but inside its crystal towers lived a ruler who trusted no one. Princess Celira stood alone on a wide balcony, her silver eyes watching the stars move slowly across the sky. Every light out there reminded her of danger. Every visiting ship reminded her of lies. Celira had learned early that trust could kill. Her mother, the former queen, had trusted advisors who promised loyalty. Those same advisors later opened the palace gates to enemies. Her father had trusted allies who smiled during treaties and plotted during feasts. By the time Celira was old enough to understand politics, betrayal was already part of her blood. Since then, she had turned away every offer, every suitor, every alliance. Other species called her cold. Some called her arrogant. She did not care. She was alive and her people were still free. Below the balcony, the great docking platforms were busy once again. Another delegation had arrived. Celira already knew how this would end. The aliens would speak of cooperation, of shared futures, of protection. They would hide their hunger behind polished words. She had heard it all before. Inside the throne chamber, the delegation waited nervously. Tall beings with scaled skin and glowing eyes stood in perfect formation. They represented a powerful trade empire. Their ships filled half the sky outside. Their leader stepped forward, bowed low, and spoke of unity. He spoke of how their fleets could protect Lysara from pirates and rival empires. In return, they asked for exclusive trade rights and political influence. Celira listened without expression. When the leader finished, silence filled the chamber. "No," she said simply. The delegation froze. No explanation followed. Guards stepped forward. The visitors were escorted out, shocked and angry. This scene repeated itself again and again over the years. Celira never raised her voice. She never insulted anyone. She simply refused. Later that same cycle, her chief advisor approached her with news of another arrival. "They are human," he said carefully. Celira turned her gaze toward him. Humans were still rare in the upper levels of galactic politics. A young species, adaptable but physically fragile with no great empire behind them. "What do they want?" she asked. "That is unclear," the advisor replied. They sent only one representative. No fleet, no guards, just a single ship. That alone was unusual. "Bring him," Celira said. "I will hear him." The human arrived in the throne chamber wearing simple clothing, not armor, not ceremonial robes. He carried no visible weapons. He was average in height with tired eyes and calm posture. He introduced himself as Elia's ward, a systems engineer and diplomatic volunteer from Earth. He did not bow deeply. He did not boast. He simply nodded in respect. "I'm honored to be here," he said. Celira studied him closely. There was no fear in his voice, but no arrogance either. "Speak," she said. "Quickly." Elias nodded. "Your orbital shield network is failing. The storms near this system are growing stronger. If the shield collapses, your city could suffer serious damage." Her advisors stiffened. One stepped forward angrily. "You dare come here to insult our technology?" Elias raised his hand slightly. "I'm not insulting it. It's impressive, but it was designed for older conditions. Space is changing. We notice the strain patterns from long-range scans." Celira narrowed her eyes. "And what do you want in return for this warning?" "Nothing," Elias said. That single word echoed through the chamber. Nothing. Celira waited for more. It did not come. "You crossed several sectors to tell me this," she said. "You expect me to believe you want nothing?" "Yes," Elias replied honestly. "If you ask for help, I'll give it. If you don't, I'll leave." Whispers filled the room. No demands, no hidden offers. No contracts placed on the table. Celira leaned back on her throne. "You will be tested," she said. You may stay for now. Elias was given access to the lower engineering levels, far from the royal towers. Many expected him to fail quickly. The shield systems were complex, partly organic, partly mechanical, designed by minds far older than humanity. But Elias worked patiently. He studied the systems instead of trying to control them. He asked questions. He listened to the alien engineers instead of commanding them. When he suggested changes, they were small, careful adjustments rather than sweeping replacements. At first, the others ignored him. Then they noticed the power flow stabilizing. Energy waste decreased. Stress fractures stopped spreading. One night, while monitoring the systems, an alarm screamed through the station. A sudden surge threatened to overload one of the main nodes. Several engineers fled the chamber, fearing an explosion. Elias did not run. He rushed to the control console, manually rerouting power through auxiliary channels. The heat burned his hands. Warning lights flashed. His heart raced, but he focused on the numbers, on the flow, on the solution. Moments later, the surge passed. The system stabilized. Security arrived to find Elias collapsed on the floor, alive but injured. Word spread quickly. Princess Celira watched the recording alone in her chamber. She replayed the moment again and again. The human had stayed when escape was easier. He had no reason to risk his life. No reward was promised. No audience watched him at the time. This unsettled her more than any threat. The next day, she visited the engineering level herself, something she had not done in years. The room fell silent when she entered. Elias stood slowly, his hands bandaged. "You should have left," Celira said. "Yes," he replied, "but then the node would have failed." She searched his face for lies. She found none. "Why?" she asked. Elias hesitated. "Because someone had to stay." That answer followed her long after she returned to her tower. Days passed. The shield grew stronger. Storms that once threatened the city now broke harmlessly against the reinforced barrier. Celira continued to watch Elias from a distance. He never asked for meetings, never requested favors. When offered better quarters, he declined, choosing to remain near the systems. Other advisors began to grow uneasy. "He is dangerous," one warned. "Not with weapons, but with influence." Celira understood what they meant. Elias was changing things without force, without fear. One evening, Celira finally summoned him privately. They met in a quiet observatory overlooking the stars. "You know I have turned away empires," she said. "I have rejected powers far greater than your species." Elias nodded. "I know. Why are you different?" she asked. He thought carefully before answering. "Because I'm not here to take, I'm here to help. If that earns nothing, that's fine." Silence stretched between them. For the first time in many cycles, Celira felt something unfamiliar. Not trust, not yet, but curiosity mixed with something softer. "You may stay," she said at last. Elias smiled just slightly. "Thank you, Princess." As he left, Celira turned back to the stars. She did not know it yet, but the strongest walls she had built were not around her city. They were around her heart. And for the first time, a crack had begun to form. The days after Elias was allowed to stay passed more quietly than anyone expected. The orbital shield of Lysara continued to improve, growing stronger with every careful adjustment he made. The engineers who once doubted him now waited for his input before changing even the smallest setting. Elias never acted like a leader. He spoke softly, asked for opinions, and listened more than he talked. This made others listen to him in return. Princess Celira watched these changes from above. She noticed how the atmosphere and the engineering levels shifted. Fear was replaced by focus, panic by cooperation. It reminded her of something she had not felt since childhood: stability. Yet peace never lasted long in the galaxy. Messages began to arrive from distant sectors. Political leaders who once begged for Celira's favor now spoke with cold politeness. Some questioned why a human was allowed such access to royal infrastructure. Others warned that humans were known for manipulation and slow control. These messages were meant to plant doubt. Celira did not answer them. Instead, she called Elias to the council chamber for the first time. The chamber was wide and filled with floating data screens and glowing symbols of power. Elias walked in calmly, even though dozens of high-ranking officials watched him closely. "You are causing concern," Celira said. Elias nodded. "That makes sense. You do not deny it." "No," he replied. "Change often scares people." A low murmur spread through the room. One council member leaned forward. "You risk much for someone with no authority here." Elias looked at him. "I don't see it that way. I risk much because the shield protects lives." Celira raised a hand, silencing the chamber. "You will explain yourself," she said. "Not to defend, but to be understood." Elias took a slow breath. He spoke about Earth, about early satellites that failed, about cities saved by engineers no one remembered. He spoke of humans learning through mistakes, of communities surviving disasters by standing together instead of waiting for leaders. "We are not the strongest," he said. "We are not the oldest. But when something breaks, we fix it. When someone falls, someone else steps in. That's how we survived." Celira listened carefully. She saw no pride in his words, only truth. Later that cycle, the shield faced another crisis. A sudden energy fluctuation hit without warning. Emergency sirens echoed through the city. This time, multiple nodes were affected. Elias moved instantly, coordinating teams across different levels. He sent instructions, adapted plans, and rerouted energy in ways the system designers never intended, but somehow allowed. He trusted the alien engineers to handle their sections without supervision. They did not fail him. The crisis ended with minimal damage. Celira stood in the control room when the final alert faded. She saw exhaustion on every face, but also something new: confidence. "You trusted them," she said quietly to Elias. "They knew what to do," he replied. "They just needed someone to believe it." That night, Celira could not sleep. Memories returned uninvited. Advisors who promised loyalty. Guards who failed at critical moments. Every betrayal had taught her the same lesson: trust leads to pain. And yet this human had trusted others with his life. The next morning, an ambassador from a neighboring empire arrived without notice. He brought gifts, glowing crystals, and carefully chosen words. "I hear you favor humans now," he said with a smile. Celira's expression did not change. "I favor honesty." The ambassador laughed softly. "Honesty is rare. Influence is more useful." Elias, standing silently nearby, met Celira's gaze. He said nothing. The ambassador leaned closer. "Remove the human, accept our protection." "You will never fear again." Celira stood. "You are dismissed," she said. The ambassador's smile vanished. Later, Elias was summoned privately. Celira faced him across a simple table, no guards present. "You could leave," she said. "The pressure will increase." Elias considered this. "Yes. Why don't you?" she asked. He met her eyes. "Because the job isn't finished." That answer struck deeper than she expected. Soon after, rumors began spreading through the city, whispers of sabotage. Claims that the human was weakening defenses on purpose. Some engineers were questioned. Tension grew. Elias noticed the change. He did not confront anyone. Instead, he worked longer hours, documenting every modification, sharing knowledge openly so no one depended solely on him. One evening, a junior engineer approached him nervously. "They think you are dangerous," she said. Elias smiled gently. "Then I need to be transparent." The next day, he invited the entire engineering division to review his work. Every line, every choice, every risk. He answered questions without frustration. By the end, doubt had faded. Celira watched from above, impressed. Power without secrecy. Influence without control. But enemies outside the city were not finished. A coded transmission reached the palace late that night. Fleet movement, unauthorized, fast. An attack was coming. Emergency councils were called. Old allies suddenly went silent. Some ships turned away from Lysara's borders. They waited, Salira realized. They waited until we trusted someone. The council demanded action. Some urged preemptive strikes. Others advised surrender. Elias spoke once. "They're testing you," he said, "not your strength, your fear." Salira closed her eyes briefly. Then she made a choice. "All defenses remain active," she ordered. "No surrender." As preparations began, Elias quietly requested access to long-range communication arrays. "For what purpose?" a general demanded. "To talk," Elias replied. Salira allowed it. Elias broadcast a message, not a threat, not a plea. He sent clear data about the shield's capabilities, about the risks of attacking a city full of civilians. He appealed not to power but responsibility. Some enemy ships slowed, others did not. The first shots never came. Instead, a sudden system failure struck the attacking fleet. Navigation errors, communication breakdowns, confusion spread. Later analysis showed nothing had been hacked, no weapons used. They had pushed their systems too hard trying to intimidate. The fleet retreated. In the quiet that followed, Salira stood alone with Elias on the balcony where she once watched the stars in silence. "You changed how my people think," she said. Elias shook his head. "They changed themselves." She studied him carefully. Trust still felt dangerous, but fear no longer felt necessary. For the first time since she took the throne, Salira felt that she was not standing alone. And somewhere in the vast darkness beyond the stars, others were beginning to notice what happened when humans were trusted. The real test, she knew, was still ahead. The warning came too late. Princess Salira was in the council chamber when the first internal alarm sounded. Not the deep, steady tone of an external threat, but the sharp, broken signal of something wrong inside the city itself. Lights flickered, data screens glitched. For a single breath, the entire floating city of Arinth felt unstable. "Report," Salira ordered calmly, even as her heart tightened. A security officer looked up in shock. "Multiple systems offline, not from outside attack." "This is internal sabotage." The word hit harder than any weapon. At the same moment, Elias was deep inside the engineering levels, reviewing shield diagnostics. His screen filled with red warnings. Power paths were being cut in places that should have been secure. Codes were being overridden by authorized access. "That's not possible," one engineer whispered. "Only high-level clearance can do that." Elias already knew the answer. Then someone high-level did. Explosions echoed in the distance, not large but precise. Doors sealed. Corridors locked. The city was being divided into controlled sections. Salira stood as chaos spread through the chamber. Some council members shouted orders. Others looked pale, silent, guilty. Then the truth revealed itself. Several ambassadors who had remained on the station suddenly activated personal shields and drew hidden weapons. They had never truly left after being rejected. They had waited. Guards rushed forward, but energy fields blocked them. The chamber filled with confusion as traitors revealed themselves openly. "This city will fall today," one of them announced coldly. "You refused protection. Now you will accept control." Salira did not answer. Her eyes searched the room. Elias was not there. That realization struck her harder than the threats around her. Security forces moved quickly, escorting Salira through emergency corridors as parts of the palace were sealed off. Explosions shook the structure, but the gravity engines held. The shield flickered, strained by internal damage. Elsewhere, Elias ran. He moved through darkened maintenance tunnels using maps stored in his device. He had no weapon, only knowledge and speed. He followed the flow of damage, tracing sabotage patterns. "They're targeting command paths," he muttered, "trying to blind the city." He reached a junction and nearly collided with armed figures. He turned instantly, diving into a side passage. Energy shots burned the walls behind him. Breathing hard, Elias changed direction. He was not trying to escape. He was trying to reach the manual relay core. If that core fell, the shield would collapse completely. Celira was guided into a secure transit pod designed to evacuate her to a hidden location in orbit. Her advisors urged her to leave immediately. "Once you are safe, we can regroup," one said desperately. Celira looked at the pod. Safety, distance, survival. Her thoughts were not on herself. "Where is the human?" she asked. No one answered. At that same moment, Elias reached the relay chamber. Smoke filled the air. Systems sparked wildly. Saboteurs were already there, working fast. Elias did not charge in. He observed, counted, listened. Then he did something unexpected. He opened a public broadcast channel. Every screen in the city flickered. Citizens saw a human face, breathing hard but steady. "This is Elias Ward," he said clearly. "If you can hear me, know this. The shield is being attacked from the inside, not by citizens, not by your people, by those who claim to be allies." The saboteurs turned in shock. Elias continued, "They want fear, confusion. If you stay calm and follow emergency protocols, they lose." Security teams responded instantly, guided by the broadcast. The traitors realized too late that secrecy was gone. Energy fire erupted in the relay chamber. Elias ducked, rolled, and slammed his hand onto a manual override. The system screamed as power rerouted through older paths. Pain shot through his arm. He gritted his teeth and held on. Elsewhere, Celira watched the broadcast from the evacuation corridor. She saw Elias surrounded by danger. She heard the truth spoken openly. The pod door remained open. "Stop," she ordered her guards. "Your Highness, we must." "No," she said firmly. "I will not run while others stand for my city." She turned back toward the heart of Arinth. The guards hesitated, then followed. The relay chamber shook violently as systems overloaded. Elias' vision blurred. He felt blood on his forehead but did not let go. If he released now, the shield would fail. A sudden energy blast threw him backward. He hit the floor hard, gasping. The last thing he saw was the chamber doors sealing shut. Celira arrived moments later, cutting through smoke and chaos. When the doors opened, she saw Elias on the floor, barely moving. Without hesitation, she rushed to him. "Why did you stay?" she demanded, lifting his head gently. Elias managed a weak smile. "Someone had to." Security forces arrived, overwhelming the remaining saboteurs. Across the city, loyal units regained control. The traitors' plan collapsed faster than it began. Celira helped Elias to his feet. "You were supposed to leave," she said, her voice tight. "So were you," he replied. They stood there, surrounded by sparks and smoke, and for the first time Celira did not feel the need to hide what she felt. Trust, not blind, not foolish. Earned, together they moved to the command center. Celira ordered a full broadcast, showing captured traitors, intercepted communications, and proof of betrayal. The galaxy was watching. "You came claiming peace," Celira said to the stars. "You brought lies instead. This is the end of your influence here." Human analysis combined with alien systems exposed every connection, every secret agreement. Former allies were revealed as manipulators. Ships that once threatened now backed away in silence. The battle ended not with destruction but with truth. Hours later, the city stabilized. The shield held. Damage was controlled. Lives were saved. Elias sat in the medical bay, exhausted. Celira entered quietly. "You saved my people," she said. He shook his head. "They saved themselves." She studied him for a long moment. "I was wrong," she admitted. "I thought trust made us weak." "And now?" he asked softly. "Now I see it makes us dangerous," she said, "to those who lie." Outside, the stars seemed brighter. The galaxy had tested Lysara. It had tested a human, and both had answered in a way no one expected. The final consequences were still coming, but one truth was clear now. Celira no longer stood alone, and neither did humanity. The days after the attack felt strange across the floating city of Arinth. The sky was calm, the engines were stable, and the orbital shield glowed stronger than it ever had before. Yet everyone knew something important had changed. The city had survived betrayal, not by fear or force, but by standing together. Princess Celira walked through the public corridors for the first time in many cycles. No royal platform, no distance. Citizens paused when they saw her, unsure how to react. Then one by one they bowed, not out of fear but respect. She stopped often, listening to their stories. Families who had hidden together, engineers who refused to abandon their stations, guards who held lines even when orders were unclear. Celira realized that the strength of her people had always been there. She had just been too afraid to trust it. Elias recovered slowly. Human bodies healed differently but stubbornly. When he finally returned to the engineering levels, the room went silent. Then someone began to clap. Others joined. Elias looked uncomfortable. "Please," he said, raising his hands. "I didn't." "You stayed," an engineer said simply. "That was enough." Celira watched from the doorway unseen. The human did not command loyalty. He earned it. News of the failed takeover spread quickly beyond Lysara. Galactic channels filled with discussions and warnings. Empires that once tried to pressure Celira now changed their tone. Some sent apologies, others sent silence. A formal summit was called. Representatives from dozens of species arrived, but this time the rules were different. No private meetings, no hidden agreements. Everything was recorded and shared publicly. Celira stood at the center of the hall, Elias beside her, not behind, not below. "You have all seen what happened," Celira said. "Those who came to take were exposed. Those who stood openly were heard." She paused, then continued. "From this moment forward, Lysara will not join alliances built on fear. We will work with those who respect transparency and mutual aid." A murmur spread through the hall. One powerful leader stepped forward. "And what of humanity?" he asked. "They are young, weak. Why place them so close to your throne?" Celira turned toward Elias, then back to the hall. "Because when lies surrounded us," she said, "a human stood in the open and spoke the truth." The silence that followed was heavy. Elias felt the weight of countless eyes. He did not speak. He did not need to. That day, humanity's status changed, not through conquest, not through technology, but through reputation. After the summit, Celira and Elias walked together along a quiet observation deck. Stars drifted slowly past the transparent walls. "You could stay," Celira said. "I could offer you a permanent position, influence, protection." Elias considered the view. "That's generous." "But," she asked, "but humans don't grow by staying in one place," he said gently. "We learn, then we move, then we help somewhere else." Celira nodded, though the thought brought an unfamiliar ache. "You changed my empire," she said, "and you ask for nothing." "I already got something," Elias replied. "What?" she asked. "Proof," he said. "That trust can survive." In the weeks that followed, joint human-Lysaran teams traveled to nearby systems, repairing stations damaged by storms and neglect. They asked for no control, no territory, just cooperation. Other species watched carefully. Some tried to copy human methods, others mocked them. But results could not be denied. Where humans worked, systems improved. Where they spoke, conflicts cooled. Not because humans were perfect, but because they admitted failure openly and fixed it together. Celira issued her final decree before stepping fully into her role as sovereign ruler. "Power built on lies will always collapse," she declared. "From this day, Lysara will measure strength by what is protected, not what is taken." The decree spread far and wide. Elias prepared to leave aboard a small human vessel. No escort fleet, no ceremony, just a quiet departure. Celira met him at the docking platform. "You will be remembered here," she said. "So will you," he replied, "as the ruler who chose courage over fear." She hesitated, then placed a small emblem into his hand, a symbol of Lysara worn only by those trusted fully. "Not as a representative," she said, "as a friend." Elias accepted it with a nod. As his ship departed, Celera watched until it vanished into the stars. The galaxy did not change overnight. Conflict still existed. Power still tempted many. But something had shifted. When future rulers spoke of influence, they spoke of humans, not as conquerors, but as the species that walked into danger without demands, that earned trust instead of forcing it, that proved the strongest weapon in the universe was cooperation backed by courage. On Lysara, children grew up hearing the story of the princess who turned everyone away, until a human showed her that trust, once earned, could protect more than any shield. And across the stars, whenever systems failed and alliances cracked, someone would ask a simple question. Should we call the humans? That was humanity's legacy. Not fear, not dominance, but the quiet, unbreakable strength of standing together when it mattered most.